just like that, the Rangers are back under NHL 500, now 10-11-3. And the two games at Pittsburgh did not go well. And both games had similarities, but really the easiest way to look at it is most of the first period of the first game, of the Sunday night game, were very good. And the third period of the second game was also good. Pretty much everything in between, awful. And that's what this Ranger team does. It's a lot of inconsistency, game to game, within game, where it's rare that they'll give you a good 60-minute effort. You know, sometimes it's 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 40, 15, who knows? But definitely, and it's like not so much work ethic, it's just getting lazy within their structure and giving up timely goals, or I guess for them, untimely goals. And with Pittsburgh, the Penguins are really about as clutch as they come. And we'll see how sustainable it is, but I think the fact that they haven't played the Devils or the Sabres yet bodes pretty well for them. So the Penguins, this is an interesting 5-team race. You know, 4 teams get in out of the 5 in this East Division, with the Rangers as really, to me, the clear 6th. But it's funny. In reality, you know, with or without Panarin, and obviously without Panarin, it really hurts this team. It would hurt any team. You know, he's one of the best players in the game. But I think you could certainly make the argument that the Rangers are more in the class of, let's just say, a Pittsburgh or a Philly or a Washington than the Devils or the Sabres. I think one could make that argument, but I think right now they're just clearly, I'd say, better than those two teams, but they are worse than the others. And my prediction for them was to finish in 6th, and it seems like it's headed that way, but it's the way that it's happening. So, first game, now, mind you, Rangers were coming off a 3-game winning streak where they beat the Sabres and the Devils twice, but reasons to be encouraged. And the first time they had been above NHL 500. So this first Pittsburgh game was, I believe, actually the first time the Rangers had played a back-to-back, as in, you know, one game Saturday and the next game, literally the next game on Sunday. And not that that was really much of a factor, but it should be noted. There was a question as to whether they were going to go with Georgiev or Kincaid. To this point, Kincaid hadn't played an NHL game since sometime last season with Montreal. Sometime, I believe, in 2019 with the Canadiens. He had been the Devil goalie for some time. And Georgiev was coming off a win against the Devils. He looked a little bit shaky, but he got the win. And so they gave Georgiev the start. And as it turned out, that probably wasn't a great decision. Also, Jacob Trouba returned for the Pittsburgh game, and he had definitely beat the timeline. It was supposed to be a 4 to 6 week injury, but I think he was back in around 3 weeks, maybe a little bit more than that. So Trouba returns, and he replaced Jack Johnson for that game. And then another lineup change was they had scratched Colin Blackwell, and Phil DiGiuseppe came back in the lineup. So the Rangers get off to a great start, and Mika Zibanejad scores a very nice goal to give the Rangers a 1-0 lead early. And they really were honestly dominating play for, I want to say, around the first 15 minutes. The Rangers had a power play, and I think we definitely need to talk about this. The Rangers, honestly, the power play has been a disappointment. Really doesn't matter who the personnel is. I'm not sure if David Oliver is the one in charge. If he is, he certainly needs to take a lot of blame. And I know, obviously, no Panarin. It hurts. Tony DeAngelo not being on the power play. Say what you want about the guy, but he, again, finished 4th among all defensemen last year in points. That was a huge loss. And Zibanejad is just not the same player. So the power play has been really bad. They're not able to get that 2-0 lead. Then, later in the period, they kill off a penalty. And then right after it expires, John Marino scores a goal that Georgiev, just his positioning just wasn't great. It's that, to me, I think that Georgiev needs to stop that. It reminded me a little bit of the PK Subban goal from the day before, but just a little bit closer. But not a great goal by Georgiev, and it's 1-1. And then it doesn't stop there. So Keandre Miller turns the puck over in the neutral zone, and this would lead to a goal by Kasperi Kapanen. And that one, you can't really blame on Georgiev. It was a breakaway for Kapanen, and he converted. The one thing I will say again about Georgiev is he is not great on breakaways. When you could kind of use that big save, and they're not really getting it from him this year. And then it doesn't stop there either. Sidney Crosby is able to get through Lindgren and Fox, and he scores. And, can't totally kill Georgiev for that one, but again, just a disaster situation where they're on a major roll, right? Coming off a 3-game winning streak, and just great first period for the most part. Then they're actually down 3-1. And honestly, Kincaid comes in for Georgiev, and did a actually very good job. He kept them in it. Pittsburgh would eventually score 2 goals in the third, one by Malkin, one by Aston Reese. The Rangers, besides a late second period flurry, just terrible, honestly. Really horrible game. They totally got dominated. It looked like the Penguins were the team that was down 3-1, which will bring me to a point, which I guess I'll touch on now, but it's relevant to the most recent game. And I don't believe when the Rangers have been down, I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive, when they've been down by 2 goals or more at any point in this season, have they even tied that particular game? Now, maybe there was a one-off where that did happen, but this team, when they're down, and we did see some fight back in this game, but they don't have that clutch ability. Whereas to me, with Pittsburgh, it's the exact opposite. Pittsburgh, it's kind of a quick strike offense with them where, they'll be kind of hemmed in their own zone, but they'll be able to get that timely goal. They can kind of turn it on and off Pittsburgh when they need to. Again, Rangers lose the first game 5-1, which at that point drops them to NHL 500. So they make a couple of changes, some minor ones, and Jack Johnson comes back in for Libor Hayek, and Colin Blackwell comes back and replaces Brendan Lemieux, which I think was a good move. Brendan Lemieux, I like, the guy just hasn't been getting it done. I think he's regressed a bit since he's become a Ranger, and I'm just not seeing the same effectiveness that maybe we've seen in the past. So I actually agreed with that. So in this game, Penguins were buzzing early and often and for a while. Another one of those just Rangers coming out of the gates, and it wasn't looking great. Also, Keith Kincaid would make his first start, and I thought that was a good decision, and thought he played pretty well. Definitely, I don't think he was a major factor in this outcome. So the Rangers would score first again, and actually it would be Jack Johnson with the goal. So Johnson scores on an assist from Julien Gauthier, who I think has been showing some, in a time where, certainly these games were not great. I think Gauthier has been getting better here and there, and you can see some potential with him. And Kreider gets the other assist. So Jack Johnson against his former team gets a goal. And look, I think with him, expectations are low. He's a guy that is kind of in the lineup, out of the lineup, on the third pair, and he's been okay. He's certainly far from, the top of the list issues. So he gets the goal to give the Rangers a 1-0 lead. But wouldn't you know it, and the Penguins, more than anyone, they're basically losing. It feels like almost every game they play, but they always come back. And it's a late period goal. And I feel like that's been a theme this year, and it was a huge theme tonight, where the Rangers just can't get out of periods in a good way. So Ryan Lindgren breaks his stick. And to me, I felt like these last 2 games for Lindgren were a little bit tough, and it's to be expected. Look, Adam Fox just continues to really be one of, if not the best players night in, night out. And Lindgren, it's a bit of a bad luck play. The stick breaks, it's a turnover. Crosby passes it to Gensel, and a great shot. And he ties it up, and that's a tough one. Tough goal, 1-1. Go to the second period. Brett Howden draws another penalty, which, again, not a Howden fan, but he had drawn a penalty earlier in the game. And that's another thing. The Rangers had a chance to take a 2-0 lead, and it was a terrible power play. Just another example of that power play killing them. So the Rangers are back on the power play, and again, it's awful. And to make matters worse, the Penguins would score shorthanded. Teddy Bluger. And I think on this one, Keandre Miller, another guy who got off to a great start, and he's a young rookie kid. I think he's definitely playing more minutes than would have ever been expected. He, kind of got walked by a bit, and maybe not the best goal by Kincaid. I think out of the 3 goals, that one maybe he could have stopped. It kind of trickled on by, but the more of the point is just a terrible power play. They got nothing going, and it hurt them again. And I just feel like sometimes, may as well decline these because, not only you're not scoring, but you're giving up goals in the process. So that makes it 2-1. And the Rangers showed some signs of life in the second, where for the most part, that first period was pretty bad. Johnson gets the goal, and it kind of turned around a bit, but the Penguins get that late period marker to tie it up. But again, it's 2-1 Penguins, and late in the second, the Rangers are hemmed in their zone. And it would cost them. Kapanen makes it 3-1. So you got 2 goals late in periods, and then a shorthanded goal. So these are just devastating goals to give up. And so it's 3-1. I'll give the Rangers credit, even though this should be just obvious. They really played a very good third period. They outshot the Penguins actually 15-1. And that one goal was actually an empty net goal by Sidney Crosby. So Ryan Strome would get a power play goal, believe it or not. So power play goal for Ryan Strome. And actually, you know what? Howden drew the second penalty, I believe, where they got the goal, where Crosby takes him down in the third. So Howden actually drew the penalty, not in the first. It was the one where the Penguins would get the short end of goal, and then the one where the Rangers would actually get the power play goal. Strome off of Marino. So actually, Jack Johnson's goal was off Marino too, and then Strome's as well. So a bit of a lucky goal, but the Rangers will take it any way they can get it, especially on the power play. And this is early in the third, so it's 3-2, and they would get tons of chances, specifically Pavel Buchnevich late. Tristan Jarry made a couple of great saves. If Buchnevich could have lifted it a little bit more, would have been a goal. But that's just kind of how the season has been in general, where the Rangers just can't find that clutch goal. Earlier in the year, it was more so on the side of blowing leads. Now it's more like if they're down, they're probably not going to come back. And you just wish what you saw in the third is what you could see more consistently. But, Crosby gets the empty net to end it. And the Rangers get no points in these 2 games. They're now 1-3-2 against Pittsburgh in 6 games. You just can't have that happen. And look, I think Pittsburgh's been not a surprise, but it is impressive the way that they somehow find ways to win games. Again, we'll see if it's sustainable, but the facts are 1-3-2 just isn't great. And now they head to Boston for 2, and that won't really get any easier. We've seen some good moments against Boston. I think generally speaking, they've played them pretty well. The record may not show that. They are 1-2-1 against Boston, all 4 games at MSG. So now they're going to Boston. It's going to be tough. I think those games are going to be awfully difficult. And I think I'd be surprised, I guess, if they win one. At most, they'll split those 2 games. I'd be shocked if they won both. So Shesterkin is slowly making his way back. Honestly, there's no rush to get him back in there. For me, assuming Shesterkin's not quite ready, I'd probably go back to Kincaid on Thursday against Boston. He certainly, he was not the reason they lost tonight. That's for sure. And we'll see. They'll probably make some lineup tweaks. As far as Panarin goes, it's unfortunate. And I think the way to look at it is they likely were not a playoff team with Panarin, but I do think that they would have probably been right in the mix, but would probably have fallen short. But now without him, it's tough to overcome. and it sucks. It definitely does. But I think in these games, we didn't really see much of Filipino. I thought he was kind of quiet in these Pittsburgh games, and it's when you're playing with Kevin Rooney, and I know I praised Goche, but he's not exactly playing with the best players. But I did think that he wasn't awfully noticeable, whereas he looked great against New Jersey in that last game especially. So we'll see. Again, it really comes down to how the young kids progress. And, you'd like to see a full lineup if possible, but it's been tough. And I think it'll be an interesting rest of the season. I think David Quinn, you kind of go back and forth on what his future will be. And I would be shocked. He will not be fired in season. Things would have to go terribly wrong. But I certainly think that they're going to be keeping a close eye on things. And, it's not going to get any easier. I mean, it's a tough stretch coming up. I know it's Boston for a couple. Then it's the Flyers and the Capitals. So they have their work cut out for them. But, kind of just as it looked like maybe things could get just a little bit interesting, that's not going to be the case. And this is clearly a 5-team race in this division where one good team is going to miss out. And whereas if they were in another division, they likely get in. So we'll see what the Bruins games hold, but a disappointing couple of games to the Rangers drops them to 10, 11, and 3, and we will talk soon.